afternoon and good day wherever you're watching us from, because today I have an international guest, so it will depend where you're watching from. Welcome to Let's Talk Money with Wendy Selebi. I'm excited this afternoon to introduce our guest. Her name is Lois Aryee, a senior behavioral designer from Ideas 42. Good afternoon and welcome, Lois.
Thank you so much, Wendy. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm very, very excited to be having this conversation with you around behavior and money. Maybe before we get into the conversation, would you please just share a little bit about who you are and the work that Ideas 42 does?
Sure, I'm very happy to. My name is Lois Aryee, like you rightly introduced me. I am a principal behavior designer at Ideas 42. My background is in research and economics. I have an undergraduate degree in economics from DePauw University in Indiana and a master's in public administration from New York University in the US. And then my previous work experience was steeped in economic research and conducting randomized control trials with an organization called IPA, Innovations for Poverty Action. I currently work with Ideas 42, which is a nonprofit that uses insights about human behavior to help improve lives, build better systems, and drive social change. We work globally with a range of partners and sectors around a range of domains, including education, health, criminal justice, livelihoods, and financial health. And we work with our partners to reinvent their practices of their institutions and to create better products and policies that can be scaled for maximum impact. We also focus on capacity building, where we teach others the basic tenets of behavioral science to help them think this way and include a behavioral approach on how they do their work in order to create lasting impact that is sustainable for everyone in the world. At Ideas 42, I personally work on financial health, which basically focuses on applying behavioral insights to improving financial systems and services and products to improve the welfare of people. I have also worked quite extensively on livelihoods and social protection issues, which have to do with specifically cash transfer programs and helping recipients of such programs utilize their monies more effectively. I'm happy to share more about what behavioral science is and other questions that you might have for me.
Sure, that is awesome. The work that you do is to be commended. I personally have got a passion of working with previously disadvantaged communities, helping them to attain that financial wealth and health that we also desire. And that's why for me, it was so important that we have this conversation around a behavioral science. And maybe just to start, what is behavioral science?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'm happy to go into that a bit more. Behavioral science is a field of study that sits at the intersection of economics, psychology, and neuroscience. And it basically looks into human behavior and why people behave the way they do. It is situated on the basic assumption or the basic understanding that our context is a very powerful influencer of the things that we do. And so, contrary to traditional economics, that assumes that human beings are rational actors who would gather all the necessary information that they need for decisions, weigh the pros and cons, and then take the best course of action. Behavioral science says that no, we are humans, and humans may know the right things to do, but do not always follow through. And we can all relate to that. We can all relate to the fact that we have New Year's resolutions to go to the gym every day. And then the alarm goes off at 6 a.m. for the gym and we hit the snooze button. Or we commit to eating more healthy and reducing our intake of less, nutritious meals. But then we go out for a party, everyone is eating and having a good time, and we go with the flow. And then our actions end up being contrary to our stated intentions. So behavioral science explores why that is the case. Why are there gaps between our intentions and our actions? And how can we bridge that gap? And it all boils down to the context we find ourselves in, the environment we find ourselves in, the things that we see, the things that we hear, the things that we believe, the ways that our environments are designed and how that influences our behavior.
So basically, our emotions are also in the mix, psychological factors, and then we behave that way. You know, you really touched a nerve, because most of the times as people, we know that we are supposed to budget, we're supposed to save, we're supposed to invest. Those are things that we do, and they form part of our vision that we set for the year, and we start off in Jan, and by the end of March, we have forgotten about it. So I'm glad that we're going to explore those, and maybe help people understand why they behave the way that they behave. I do know that there are some behavioral science principles that, help people change the way that they behave, specifically when we talk about money. Can you just share some of the behavioral science principles that are out there? I think I'd like our viewers to have some knowledge around that.
Yeah, I'm happy to do so. So one of the principles that comes to mind immediately is the idea of time inconsistency and presence bias, which is the idea that human beings tend to put more weight on the immediate and present issues than longer term issues. And that means that even though we care about our future, for example, saving for the future, saving for retirement and things like that, today's needs and today's wants, they loom larger. They feel more real and more tangible and more attractive, and they have a stronger pull on us. And so as humans, from a behavioral perspective, if you want to help people to think more long-term, then you have to try to create ways to make the longer term feel more immediate and feel more present. And there are different ways to do so. For example, we've worked on projects where we have had people set goals and make the goals very tangible. Because if you just say you're saving, and it's more like a very abstract thing, yes, we all want to save. If the goal is not as tangible and as vivid, then it might be difficult to build the motivation. So for example, we'd work with people to say, hey, what are your goals? And they might say things like my children, their education, my health, or things like that. And then sometimes we actually would create images of these things and actually stick them in a place that is very visible, so that the goal that they are working towards is more vivid and they can remember more easily. And we have found things like that to actually lead to a greater connection to their goals and therefore more motivation to keep up with it. We've also tested experiments where we've actually had people visualize what they would look like in the future and empathize with their future selves, for example. And those things have also been found to lead to motivation and how people save towards their goals. There's also the issue of hassle factor.
Maybe before you move on, so are you saying that vision boards are one of the ways that would help you to achieve on some of your goals? Because you said that if you put them on a wall, probably in your bedroom, every morning when you wake up, you see what you envision for the future, and that motivates you to achieve your long-term goals. That's number one. And then number two, when you talk about goals, does it help if you break your goals into short, medium, and long-term goals for you to be able to achieve on all your goals?
Those are really, really good questions. And yes, I think clarifying the vision is an important way to to start to create motivation and to create commitment towards your goals. And having this in a visible place, like you mentioned, is also important. But it doesn't just stop there, right? Having a vision is good, but then I think beyond having the vision, making it actionable, even where you put that image of your vision makes a big difference. So I'll give an example of some work we did in multiple African countries with beneficiaries of cash transfer programs, where the governments that were running these programs were a bit concerned because they wanted the beneficiaries to be able to utilize these funds productively and not just for consumption. And some of the interventions were actually giving people extra money for productive purposes. But then they often found that consumption still ended up being a bigger portion of what people use the money for than their productive needs. And so we spent time in the community to understand, why is this happening? And we try to understand people's spending patterns and also their beliefs, their habits, their behaviors. And we found that for a lot of people, their goals were not as, they were not as relatable. Starting a business is fine, but beyond that, like today's needs, food for the family, things like that were more tangible. So in terms of visualizing, we actually worked through some activities with the beneficiaries to say, hey, if you began your business, what will that accomplish for you that you actually care about? And that's where it got personal. It got personal to things like, yeah, I want a business that would actually succeed because my kids, are young and they need to go to school and they need to, have a better future than I do. And then we actually gave them savings boxes where we pasted stickers of their goals to the boxes. So these boxes are very actionable. When you see the box, you have to save. But beyond that, you also now have a picture of a family reminding you of the fact that you care about your family and you are saving not just to be productive, but also because ultimately it has an impact for your family. We also put tracking sheets on the boxes so that each time you save, you put a sticker on the sheets. In a way, it keeps you reminded. It keeps you, it shows you your progress. So it helps you also celebrate your, the milestones you're achieving as you go ahead. And that way it was a lot more actionable. And then there were other, things that went along with it. So beyond just, having a goal, which is really important, thinking through how to apply the goal is important and being very specific. For example, one thing that we had them do is also to think about, when do you want to save? Choose a date and a time that you're going to make sure you put the money inside. How much exactly are you going to put inside? And the more concrete you make your goal, the easier it is. But you're right, short term is really important. And that's why breaking it down, for example, if you want to pay for your child's university fees, maybe that's 1,000, CDs. I'm going to use CDs because I'm based in Ghana. That might be 1,000 CDs. That's a lot of money and that's hard to achieve. But if you start from today, how much can you save every day? And then that way it feels more tangible, it feels more bite-sized, it's easier to track, and over time you can reach your goal. So these are some of the things that we have tested and have found to be really useful when it comes to helping people take action in pursuit of their goals.
I love that, because if you are saving as a family and you want to inculcate that culture of saving with your children and you want to do it as a family, it's such an exciting thing to have those visual boxes, labeled, and every time you put money in there, you put stickers, you actually start making it fun, and the kids then, or whoever wants to save, don't feel that it's a burden for them to save. Wow. No, thanks for that. And then I think you were going to go to the second behavioral principle that you wanted to share.
Yeah, before I go there, you just made me think of something by saying fun. And actually, fun has been found to be a way that you can help people also improve their behaviors in line with their intentions. I think it sounds intuitive and it sounds common sense. Of course, make it fun, but we don't always think to do that. And a lot of studies have gone into showing that making something a bit more fun can actually lead to people's habits. And I'll give a few examples that might seem trivial, but were found to be very effective. The Amsterdam airport, for a long time, had issues with men spilling when they went to the bathroom. And they tried a lot of things to try to stop that. They put signs, please don't spill, things like that. None of that seemed to work. And then someone thought, hey, men like a challenge, men like a target. Why don't we draw a fly in the middle of the toilet bowl? And that will give them something to aim at. And maybe if they did that, then they'll be more incentivized to target when they go to the bathroom. And amazingly, it led to a significant drop in spillage, because again, people go to the bathroom, they see the fly and they want to hit it. and that solved the problem. Also, there's a study of trying to encourage people to use the staircase more than the elevators in order to improve fitness and health of people in this community. And that was a challenge. So what they did is that they actually designed a keyboard as a staircase, so that when you use the staircase, you can actually play like it's like a keyboard. It plays music as you go, and it's also painted like a keyboard. And they saw the number of people who use the staircase improve by, I think, over 70%, just because it was more fun. People will come and they'll just hop on it and they'll enjoy it. Yes, being able to make the things that we want to do more enjoyable for us, it's very important. And that leads to another concept called temptation handling, which is the fact that sometimes there are things that you don't want to do. And the way to get yourself to do it is to tie it to something that you actually want to do, you actually enjoy doing, right?
Yeah.
So it could be that you don't want to go to the gym, right? So it's boring, it's tedious, but you really enjoy listening to podcasts, you really enjoy watching movies. Why don't you commit yourself to the fact that you would only watch podcasts or movies at the gym? That way, now you're motivated to go to the gym because you know that when you get there, you actually have a reward. And this can be similar to even when it comes to things like savings and things like financial habits, where you could actually, reward yourself for sticking to your plan. You could decide that, it shouldn't be all, straight. You feel like, and people have, responded to this, like when something feels unpleasant, people avoid it, and we call that ostriching. They try to hide. It's not pleasant. I don't want to think about my finances. I'm already struggling. And you're going to tell me that I cannot do the things I enjoy, like eat that one ice cream I want to eat because I have to save that money. But if you tell people, hey, you can keep doing that, but why don't you tie that to your goals? Why don't you set a short-term goal and say that once I accomplish this goal, I'm going to reward myself with the ice cream? That way, you're not just eating the ice cream in a vacuum, but you are enjoying yourself, but whilst also, getting closer to your goals. And that's another way to build better financial habits.
Wow. Those are great examples. I actually love them. And it would be awesome if we just put some of those into practice, and then it would make saving and investing so much easier and so much fun, instead of us making it to be a miserable, thing that we have to do and that we really don't like doing. If we have an idea of what we want to achieve, what the future that we envisage for ourselves and our families, we want it to look like, and then we have those fun things implanted, then we're good on our way to achieving our goals. Okay, on to the second principle you wanted to share.
Sure. I think I've actually mentioned quite a couple now. Temptation.
Yeah, you have.
Ostriching, present bias. These are all, important behavioral insights. But there's also the principle of social norms, which is the idea that we like to please people, right? Humans are usually people pleasers. We want to fit in. We want to, we don't want to be left out. And so the things that we see others doing and the things that we believe others are doing affects how we also behave, whether we like it or not. And we tend to behave in ways that we think would align to others. So when it comes to financial, behaviors, it is important in the sense that the things that we usually observe are the consumption behaviors. You go to the mall, you see people buying, you see people shopping, social media, everyone is going on a holiday, everyone is vacationing, everyone is eating out. That's what you see. And then you feel like, oh my goodness, I'm the only one who is, at home. I'm the only one eating home-cooked meals. I'm the only one dressing in the same clothes every day. And subconsciously, you find yourself, making decisions to go and shop more often than you probably would if you didn't see all that. And even in a low income setting is the same. You go to the market, you see people buying food for their families, you see things like that, but you never see when somebody is saving, right? That's very private. You never see when somebody is investing. You never see those decisions being made. You don't see the difficult decisions being made. And so we are then primed to follow, and sometimes we are even misled, because people might be saving behind closed doors, and you have no
Mm-hmm.
idea. And we found that like when we work with people in low income backgrounds, that they would say things like, yeah, in this village, nobody can save. We are all poor. And then you talk to somebody else and they're like, no, I've actually been saving and I've purchased a goat that has begun to, produce, or I've been able to buy provisions and I'm selling from saving.
Mm.
But then to their neighbor, it's like, oh, we are all poor and therefore I'm no different. And that's why I don't save, because it's just not possible for us. So making the healthier behaviors more salient can also be useful for motivating behavior, encouraging more conversations that are, shedding a light on the fact that people are saving, people are doing the right thing, sharing testimonials, things like that could also be very powerful. And we've seen impacts even beyond the financial world. So for example, there have been studies where they are trying to get people to be more conscious about their energy consumption. And so what they do is that they send you a letter every month with a sticker based upon your energy consumption. They compare you to your neighbors. So if you have used more electricity or water than your neighbors, you get like a sad face. And then you are told that all your neighbors were at this level, you are at this level. And if it's the other way, you get a happy face. And things like that have actually been shown to change people's behaviors around how they use energy. And we've also tried that in the financial space, where we've had people, we send them a sticker, or we give them a sticker with a smiley face when they take positive behaviors, when they meet their short-term goals, things like that. And it just helps to reinforce the idea that society actually cares about these things too. We don't just care about the outward appearance, the consumption, the flashy behavior. We also care about you making good decisions, and we reward those things. So that's another principle. Wow.
Sure, you've really shared some awesome nuggets with us. And maybe a follow-up question from me to you is that how does our context impact the way that we behave and make decisions? If, for example, I'm at a party, I'm willing to pay 50 rand, South African rands, for a bottle of water that I know if I bought at a supermarket is 10 rand. But because of the context, my behavior changes. How does that happen?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it really gets at the heart of behavioral science. Context is so powerful, and if you don't understand that, you're going to be trying all kinds of things that will not work. And a lot of people spend so much money. For example, a good example is COVID-19, right? COVID came, everyone was afraid, everyone was concerned, and we were told social distancing, stay away, stay at home. And even though everyone was afraid and everyone was concerned about not getting COVID, people were still not practicing social distancing. Why? Because just giving us information doesn't necessarily lead to action. Just telling people stay at home doesn't lead to action. Are you actually giving people, I train people what to do when they stay at home? Are you creating environments where it's pleasant for them to stay at home? So yeah, context is key. And honestly, it is very difficult if you put yourself in a context that is counter to your objectives to actually work against that to reach your objectives. And the best way to actually, to deal with that is to pay attention to your context, right? So if you're at home and you're trying to work on your nutrition goals and eating healthy, then at home, why don't you build a context where you have healthy options? Why don't you stuff your counters with fruits rather than candy? When you open your fridge, do you see healthy alternatives or do you see unhealthy alternatives? You can control that. Now, going to a party once in a while, we are also human and we should also, be able to have a good time. But it's more about what you do on the regular basis and how that affects your context. But yeah, we see that everywhere. And so I think another important thing that leads to is that when you see people behaving in ways that don't seem, don't seem like in their best interest or don't seem like the reasonable thing to do, it's very easy to blame them and to say that you are at fault because you should know to do better. But actually, what are their situations? What are they, how are they living? How are they what is their context? And when it comes to scarcity, and I know you said you've worked with low income and rural communities, it's especially difficult because research shows that when you are dealing with scarcity, it's like you're in a tunnel. You are so focused on the most important thing, or the thing that feels important at the moment to you. It's very hard to break out of that and think about other things. You are so focused on making today's ends meet. So every money you get is going into making sure that your kids are fed for today. You don't even have the space, you don't have the bandwidth to think about, am I taking some aside for tomorrow? Even though that's important, because tomorrow, if, God forbid, you get sick, you can't go to work, you don't get paid, then how do they eat then? But you don't think that way because you're in a tunnel. And so part of behavioral science is to say that help bring people out of the tunnel and help create ways for them to have some more flexibility, some more cushion, so that they can actually have the bandwidth to think beyond where they are. You cannot really expect people to do certain things if their context is dictating the opposites.
Yeah. Okay, so maybe just follow through on that. I mean, if you have got these blinkers, you are in this tunnel, and all you see is this little money that you have, that you get, and money is tight, and we come and we say, no, you need to save, you need to invest for the future. And then people say, no, I don't have. And, or if they do it begrudgingly, they feel a loss, How do we turn that around? How do we move them from feeling loss to them getting an understanding of what you've just said, that God forbid, if anything happens and you're unable to work, what do you do? I mean, look at what COVID did to us, We were not even expecting it, and voila, it was here. And then people were exposed. We then, including myself, we realized that we didn't have enough savings. And if it had continued for much longer, some people really suffered. So how do we work with that loss aversion?
Speaking like a behavioral scientist. Wendy, are you a secret behavioral scientist?
I'm not.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Loss aversion is real. And, studies show that we actually we feel our losses more than we enjoy our gains. So, if you have like $1 and that's taken away from you, it feels more painful than the joy you get when someone gives you $1.
Yeah.
So we really are attached to what we have. We are sticky in that way. And you're right, that can also affect our behaviors. And I'll share a project I'm working on currently that kind of speaks to that. So I'm working on a project which is based in the US, but basically around helping clients of credit counseling companies. And these are people who are in debt and are seeking help to pay off their debt. So usually they have multiple lines of credits that they are unable to pay off. And so they seek help from the credit counseling agencies. These agencies consolidate all their debts. They talk to all their creditors and they say that, okay, now you can pay us a fixed amount every month and we'll pay your creditors for you. This is like
we call it debt review in South Africa.
Okay,
I see. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, that's counseling, exactly. So what happens is that even though it's actually better for them to stick to the plan that they are given and pay it off, regularly, it feels very painful. Every month, it feels painful to take out that money and pay off their debts, even though if they don't, they're going to be worse off because now they're going to have even more debt. They may have to declare bankruptcy and all of that. So a lot of people would start the process and then along the way they stop because loss aversion is painful to give out the money. So what we do is that we try to counter that with making the benefits more salient, making the benefits feel more immediate. And so we are actually in the process of even designing solutions for this. And we have designs like showing them how much they're actually saving by paying off their debt every month. You're not just losing, but also gaining. Because every time you pay off your debts, if you had been trying to service the creditors all by yourself, it would have cost you a lot more than what the credit counseling agencies have been able to negotiate for you. So each time you pay them off, you're actually saving. So we make that very salient. This is how much you're saving every month. And we try to celebrate it. We try to celebrate the milestones. So we say, you've come 6 months far. That is great. We try to send, congratulatory messages just to bring a more positive dimension, because to be honest, all that they get from the agencies can feel negative, right? It's more like you haven't paid, you've missed your deadline, and it's almost like it's all that they're trying to take from us. So we try to how do we give back? We are even considering things like maybe having some raffles, so that maybe if you make payments consistently for a certain number of months, you can enter into a raffle and you might be able to win something, right? So that you have something to look forward to, and not just, the drudgery of paying. So a good counter balance to loss aversion is really trying to make the benefits salient and more immediate, because as human beings, we zoom onto the negative and we focus on that, but then we can make the experience more pleasant for people.
Sure. I really, really have learned so much in this conversation, and you've just shared such powerful, ideas that are so simple that can be incorporated to make the journey. I mean, who would have thought that if you are under debt review, people view it from a negative perspective, and actually there is a positive. And actually, if I'm right, if your situation, maybe after a year or so, you've opened up an opportunity for you to can start putting away some money towards saving. So that way you are paying off your debt, at the same time you are saving, and that's something to be celebrated, so there is a positive. So to our viewers that are watching, just know that just because you're under debt review, it's not a negative, and there's always a positive in a negative situation. As we draw closer to the end of our interview, many people, when they save, I was one of those, you link your current account to your savings account, and you can see it every day. So you put the money in there, and every time you log onto your money app or whatever, you see your negative current account balance, but you see the positive in your savings account. And of course, the thing that you do is just to transfer back into your current account. So in your mind, you are saving, but actually you're not saving. What are some of the strategies that one can do, not to do that, to tap into the money that you think you are saving?
That's a really good point. And so I think there are multiple ways to, go about this from a behavioral perspective. And one of the things that we try to do is to what we call partitioning. So not just putting money away, again, earmarking the money, right? So at the very basic level, to show like a very simple example, working with very low income people, we've done things like giving them envelopes or a pouch with 2 pockets, where one pocket is labeled for consumption and the other pocket is labeled for saving. And then for saving towards what? Again, we always link it to the goal, right? So that's something that we try to do. Now, an interesting thing that we are finding more and more is that even though you want to make, so partition also goes well with some form of commitments, right? So maybe making it difficult to access the money. For example, like with the savings boxes, we have keys, we have locks. People can decide to maybe give their key to somebody that they trust, they cannot access their money, things like that. But we found that people are actually averse to too strict measures, because especially when you live in scarcity, you don't know when next you're going to need to dip into that fund. And it's not always bad, depending on what your situation is, right? So so we've realized that people need some flexibility. They need it to feel difficult to access their money, but not impossible. So sometimes things like, people will cut their credit cards so that they can access the money, but they have to go to the bank. And so that extra work makes you feel less, motivated to go for your money unless you really need it, right?
Yeah.
People would choose a bank that is very far away, so that if you really want to go for the money, you have to drive all the way there. Is it really worth it? So then that makes it, at least it's like you put an obstacle in your way to make the decision a bit more difficult. And like we've been saying, when things are more difficult, it gives you some inertia. You don't want to, do it. So putting barriers in your way can make it a bit more difficult for you to dip into your funds. But at the end of the day, I think people also want the freedom. And in behavioral science, we try not to be paternalistic. We don't want to control people. They still have, ultimate discretion over what they do, but we try to help them make it easier or make it more difficult. And I think in this case, if you can make it more difficult for yourself to do, then you're more likely to be able to keep growing your savings.
Wow, I like that partitioning principle. And also putting locks, because there are investments that you can do, that you can invest in successfully, where you really put a lock in for a longer period. You probably take out an investment that's locked in for 5 years. You take out another one that, is locked in for 24 months. And then you have one where you can tap into the money in the event, you have an emergency. So that way, you've partitioned your money in such a way that you've locked the one portion, and you are guaranteed that in fact, after 5 years, you still have something to fall back on. When Lois, this was,
One more thing, you can also leverage loss aversion to help you. So what people have done, and I'm just thinking of a different, it's not in financial health, but an example in fitness. I have an app where you have goals of how much weight you want to lose, right? But what they say is that they're going to take some money from your account, say $50 or something. And if you don't reach your goal by the day that you set, then they're going to use the money and donate it to your favorite charity. So now you have something to lose. And people can actually do that also when it comes to savings. You can set goals and actually tell your friend, hey, my plan is that I want to put aside this amount of money every week for a year. I'm going to give you $200 to keep for me. At the end of the year, if I don't have my savings goal, give that money, donate the money to an orphanage on my behalf. Now you have something on the line to make you more hooked to trying to reach your goal.
Wow, I love that. I love that. I'm certainly going to implement some of the suggestions that you've given here. And it's actually not even suggestions. It's things that are practical that we can do to make sure that we achieve. I've been trying, I've set a goal and I wanted to work towards it, and I can see I'm faltering. So I'm going to do something like that, give someone some money and say, keep it. If I don't reach this goal, just give away this money. That's a great idea. Thank you. Thank you so much, Lois, for the wisdom. I tell you, I am so empowered. So we, at the end of our interview, usually I ask my guests to plant a seed of wisdom, to leave our viewers with a seed that they can use. So sort of your nugget.
I guess maybe in closing, I want to say that focus on the context, not the person. It's the situation. I guess what we say is the situation, not the person, right? So if you change the context, you can change behavior. People at their heart, usually at their core, they want to do what is best for them. People genuinely, and usually they actually know what to do. They are very savvy. They know what they need to do, but then they struggle because of their context. So as program designers, as product designers, and as individuals, policymakers, if you want to help people, build better habits and form better behaviors, think about what's in their environment you can change. You cannot change a person. At the end of the day, people are who they are, but you can change their context. That will lead to impact.
Wow, there you have it. Thank you so much. It was really a pleasure having this conversation with you. And I wish you well in the work that you are doing. And I'm hoping that we can reconnect again on a follow-up, after this. And I'd like to wish you a good afternoon. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Louise has shared some amazing, ideas with us and some powerful tools that we can put in place to make sure that we reach our financial goals. On that note, thank you and goodbye.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.